private sector is doing fine.
He says we need more firemen, more policemen, more teachers. Did he not get the message of Wisconsin?
You know, the stop and frisk situation is really hard for young minority males. I'm a young man that has 3 advanced degrees. I've been racially profiled in my neighborhood. We've been thrown to the ground, searched.
Mitt Romney's a good, moral person, but he's not a Christian. Mormonism is not Christianity. It has always been considered a cult.
Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Andrew Whitman, in tonight for Richard French. I want to thank you for joining us on this Wednesday evening, June 13th. And as always, we have a lot to get to tonight. First up, out of touch. Obama and Romney both accusing the other of being more removed from the American people. But who's really winning the out of touch Olympics, and does it matter in the long run? Up next, the cash capital. With all that money flowing this campaign season, a top Obama campaign strategist suggested that a second-term Obama would push for a constitutional amendment to overturn the Citizens United ruling. How would that fly, and are we finally at a point to take a suggestion like that seriously? And later, stop and frisk. We're going to hear from someone who was the executive director of the Correctional Association for more than 29 years about what it's like inside the police department and what he's doing to try and put an end to stop and frisk. And then Mitt's Mormonism. Does discussion of one's religion have a place in the presidential race? And is Mitt Romney's religion a big stumbling block on his way? It's all coming up on this edition of RFL, but we begin with the race to see who's more out of touch. When it comes to modern presidential campaigning, it's not often that a single message lasts more than a day or two. Short attention spans, 24-hour news cycles, web sources. They tend to move issues along faster than ever before, which is why it's a little surprising that 2 statements made by the 2 men on your screen last Friday are still making headlines today, 5 days later. It started with the president's slip that the private sector is doing fine. You heard that quote in our open. Now, as Republicans look to paint the president as out of touch, the president has been trying to do some damage control.
We are in a stronger position. We are moving in a better direction than when I took office.
But that may not be enough for the president to escape the out-of-touch label, not when Democrats, and a lot of them, are talking to reporters about their concerns, including the self-proclaimed mouth of the South.
I'm worried that when the White House or the campaign talks about the progress that's being made, people take that as a signal that they think that things are fine, and people don't feel out or believe that.
Now, at the same time, the White House is smacking back at Mitt Romney for comments he made while trying to make Obama look bad for that misspeak last Friday. This as other Republicans begin to slowly walk back from the party's push for austerity and insistence on tax cuts. Here's what Romney said on Friday again.
He wants another stimulus. He wants to hire more government workers. He says we need more firemen, more policemen, more teachers. Did he not get the message of Wisconsin? The American people did. It's time for us to cut back on government and help the American people.
Now, that was an applause line for Mitt Romney on Friday, but it may also be positioning him as being somewhat out of touch, especially if you believe the polls. CNN poll last October, 75% of Americans support federal spending to keep police, firefighters, and teachers on the job. That is a group that includes 72% of all independent voters. So who's more out of touch, and is the label of out of touch really going to stick and do damage in this campaign? To answer that question and so many others tonight, we're going to bring in our panel. We begin with Tom Doherty, political strategist, former advisor to Republican Governor George Pataki, and a formidable Twitter fight foe. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, and Bethany Blankley, a religion and politics analyst and conservative columnist. Guys, welcome. First of all, let's talk about the out-of-touch label. If it sticks, it's potentially pretty damaging, right? We agree on that?
Yeah, I think the damage has already been done, and I think that we're going to look back and say that the last few days were really set the tone for the election. I mean, you have a president with an economy that is getting no better. He can say, and when he says stuff like that, people actually chuckle at it. If you look at the job numbers, if you look back at the job numbers going back to April, where they just had to drop to make another 40,000, and him to say that the economy is doing well and that the problem is we're not creating enough public sector jobs just shows he's really out of touch.
Tom, we agree the damage has been done, right? We agree on that much, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The damage has been done where Mr. Romney is so out of touch that he rides around with his dog on top and thinks that's the American way.
So you think, so Dominic, with all due respect, you're going to now actually think we have
the
tens of
president
millions,
screwed up big time
we have
on that
millions
economy
and
statement.
millions of Americans out of work.
Right.
And
That
you're
the
hinging
president-
your hopes
that the
on
president-
Election Day they're going to be worried about that dog on his roof.
No,
it
but
was
I
a
think-
mistake.
but
It was
I
a
think-
stupid mistake.
but I
But the
think-
bottom line is
but I think-
Americans are suffering
Tom-
every day this man's in the White House.
But Tom,
Okay,
I think
I'm going to be the referee.
Okay, referee. But I think,
my
but
job.
I just want to make this one comment. I think right next to Mitt Romney's name, it says out of touch. So there's no debate about that. I do agree that President Obama screwed up big time by describing the economy as fine, and it may cost him the election. But let's keep in mind he inherited the Titanic.
Oh, please, Dominic. I mean, this is 3.5 years ago now. You expect a president, he has lost jobs.
After how
since
many
he's
years
been-
of President
he
Bush?
has lost jobs since he's been president of the United States. After he
Why?
gave us $1 trillion.
Why?
He said.
Did he start out in the red? Did he start out negative?
He said, if you let me spend $1 trillion, unemployment will not be at 7% last August. No, August of 2010. We were at 8.2% today. It's not getting better. It's getting worse. His policies have failed, period.
Though the stimulus actually did improve the economy. We went through that on Monday. But
With who? Some economists from the Huffington Post?
No, looking at numbers
I mean,
about
really?
looking at numbers about the gross domestic product and the unemployment rate, all of which rebounded right after the stimulus passed.
Of course, because you hired a bunch of government employees on a short term.
It didn't go back to 8% because
course
the
it
hole was
did.
much deeper than we thought it
You
was going to be
made
going
governments
in.
who took part in that program hire government workers short term, knowing the governments couldn't keep them on the payroll.
Which is only how we got out of the Great Depression. But Bethany, is this mutually assured destruction here with the out of touch going back and forth? Have we gotten to the point where it's possible that both of these candidates are going to be labeled as out of touch, so it's sort of a wash in the public's eyes?
I totally agree. A recent Rasmussen poll just said that 64% of Americans think that both candidates, that neither of the candidates are the right choice for president. So Americans don't feel that they can relate to either candidate, and both of them have to overcome this out of touch persona.
All right. We're gonna move on. We'll call that a nice resting spot. We're gonna move on to money in politics. You know, the 1930s outlaw Willie Sutton, he's credited with one of the great quotes of all time. When asked why he robs banks, he answered, well, that's because that's where the money is. That also somewhat describes Washington, D.C., especially in an election year. That is where the money is. With 5 months until Election Day, the money numbers are already into the nosebleed section. Thus far, Mitt Romney's campaign has raised more than $87 million. President Obama's campaign has raised more than $197 million. But when you factor in all the PACs, super PACs, and other outside groups, Romney could catch or even surpass Obama's dollar total. So far, Restore Our Future, the pro-Romney super PAC, has raised more than $46 million. Priorities USA, that's the pro-Obama PAC, has just $9 million. Add to the presidential race all the other races that are coming this year: the Senate, Congress, governors, state legislatures, mayors, county leaders, dog catchers, Tom. And the research firm Burrell Associates estimates close to $10 billion is going to be spent this election cycle, with 4.76 billion, or about 48%, coming from non-candidate spending like those groups. Of course, no one contributes to a campaign without expecting something in return, and at the very least, that money influences the decisions a politician makes. So a top Obama advisor is now hinting at doing something about it. At an event in New York on Monday, Obama campaign strategist David Axelrod suggested that if given a second term, the Obama administration would push for a constitutional amendment to overturn the Citizens United ruling that allows for unlimited and anonymous donations from corporations, groups, and unions. Axelrod called the current system very grave, saying, quote, "It's taking us back to the Gilded Age. We're back to the robber barons taking over the government." Now, guys, putting aside the fact that a constitutional amendment is a pipe dream for just about anything these days, is it time to start taking a look at money in politics?
No.
Axelrod has no credibility.
No.
I'll argue Tom's point.
He has no credibility
He has
at
no,
all.
wait. On this one particular issue, when you're running against John McCain, you can't opt out of campaign finance because you're raising more money than God.
After you said you would be in campaign finance.
After you said you'd be in campaign finance.
He's a hypocrite.
And no, wait a minute. And now that the super PACs are around, and Romney is going to probably double President Obama's money with the super PACs, so you can't have it both ways.
Without getting into the individual candidates or campaigns here, Is all this money in our political system good for the country?
It's free speech, but beyond that...
You really think it's free speech?
It's free speech, but beyond that is that we wouldn't be having this as a topic tonight if the numbers were just forget the super PACs. If you had Barack Obama at $197 million and you had Romney at $87 million, I can guarantee you nobody here would be complaining that, oh, poor Mitt Romney doesn't have enough money. Now, all of a sudden, Citizen Unions allows Republicans and other super PACs around the country, and George Clooney can have $25 million fundraisers with all his wealthy friends with Barack Obama, and somehow Mitt Romney's out of touch. I mean, the bottom line is, listen, unions for years have taken money from their people. They've taken money, right, because people, nothing wrong with it.
Throwing piles of money
and you know
Scott
what?
Walker.
If Barack Obama thought that he had a winning issue there, he would have went up there and raised tens of million dollars. He knew he was a loser up there, so they all ran away from him.
But let me go back to the bigger picture issue here, which, Tom, you said money is free speech.
Yeah.
Do we all think that it is? And if you have more money than I do, why should you have more free speech than I do?
Ultimately, you have a vote and I have a vote. That's what we get at the ballot box.
No, but the free speech that you're talking about is the money, and that's not even one person, one vote.
But for years, listen, here's the problem in our country, and I think the system really works out well for this reason, is that for years we've had 98% of incumbents reelected across the board in this country. Why? They got franking privileges in Congress. Inherently, because they were incumbents, they got to raise more money. My thing has always been this. If Andrew wants to run for, a House in the United States Senate, right? And I have $40 billion, and I'd like to give you $10 billion, as long as I disclose that I'm giving you $10 billion, shouldn't I get to level the playing field against an incumbent who gets to raise oodles and oodles amount of money?
It's not leveling the playing field
if you
wind up with somebody getting $10 billion and somebody else getting just a couple of million.
I'm exaggerating the point.
The only way that anybody can run today is if they're have millions of dollars.
Right.
And Citizens United is actually going to be reviewed by the Supreme Court in about a week. We're expecting them to...
They may take it, they may not.
They may take it, they may not, because of this case in Montana. So I don't really think that Axelrod saying they're going to get this constitutional amendment is realistic.
Look, I think that Washington is so toxic right now that a constitutional amendment saying that we like sunshine couldn't possibly pass.
The Supreme Court has some big decisions coming up, and I think this will be one of them.
Concern you at all the money in the system right now, Dom?
It's scary, the amount of money that's being pumped in. Let's put it this way. The billionaire casino owner.
Yeah,
Sheldon
Right, they put in all the money.
Great guy.
They put in all the money.
Just switched from Gingrich to Romney.
That's right, he just switched. I guess he just has nothing to do with his money, and he just wants to give it to candidates.
Do you know?
Wait,
Dominic, I don't even want to give you the numbers in terms of what the Sheldons of the world have given compared to the money that George Soros has pumped into Democratic activities over the last 10 years.
But the two rights don't make a wrong argument here.
But wait a second. Where I have the problem is where were people like you when George Soros was pumping tens of hundreds of millions of dollars into Democratic politics? Nobody had shows like this. It's now that the Republicans have decided we're going to play the same game that now it's an issue.
That's why
George Soros was okay.
Okay, I'll get
Wasn't
to
he?
that one. But that's why what Obama did the first time around, in terms of the small donations from millions of Americans. That's the way a presidential campaign should be run.
All right, we're going to take a break here. We're going to take a break here.